Click allow access. Now your volume is on. So if you could just click.
God.
What?
So don't smash me.
Hello, hello. Can anyone hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes.
Hello, everybody. Can I be heard?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Welcome.
Your screen looks funny though. It's compressed. Are you aware of that?
No, I'm not aware of that. Thank you for letting me know.
And hello to your dog in the background.
Hoover. Max, my screen is looking a little odd.
I mean, it looks fine to me. It kind of looks like a aspect ratio of an old TV, but I don't know.
It's
It
like
looks fine to
like
me.
sweet.
It is slender. Okay, Max, if you can help welcome people, I will go run a little check on my screen and see if I can widen it. And if not, I'll just be a cool old TV. Thank you.
All right, sounds good.
Oh my gosh, is that Max I see on Facebook all the time?
Yeah, what's up, Peter? I see you on
Hey, man.
Facebook too.
Yeah, I like your shitty comment about my posting the COVID numbers again.
Yes, I
Just
was not
can't believe
happy to
it.
see you posting again, but that's
Yeah, and I saw a pop up on CNN earlier today that said all 67 counties of Florida are considered high risk at this time. It's just insane.
it totally. It's and I wouldn't say it's preventable because Delta was going to get us either way, but not the way it is right now. So
Yeah, I mean, we would have had a leg up if we would have, had more people vaccinated at a faster rate, to limit it or blunt it or whatever. But oh my gosh, it's like a wildfire for the unvaccinated right now. But what I was thinking about when I posted those, and I don't want to talk about COVID, but I mean, this doesn't start for a couple of minutes. But
yeah, we
the
got a
thing that I
couple
was
more.
thinking, I posted that and I saw your comment, the other people's comments, but I realized, wait a second, these numbers are just as scary as they were last time, but half of the state is vaccinated now.
Yeah.
So that means it's just as bad for only roughly half of the number of people. So and once I realized, I was like, oh my God, this is even worse than I thought. So, but I'll quit the pandemic complaining.
Now we
Nice
get
to
to
see
talk about our trees. And
No, let's talk about the pandemic.
yeah, right.
Uh,
Well, hey Jeff, thank you for sponsoring this.
well, I think the Leon County Democrats are sponsoring this.
Well,
I'm just
that's true.
going up a bit.
Being the special guest, I guess, is a better way of saying it.
Sure.
Okay, we are gonna take another minute or two and just let people arrive. So I'm gonna ask that we maybe let ourselves be a little quiet, but this is a great moment to use the chat if you want to say hey to someone you haven't seen for a while, or affirm how great it is to be here collectively to protect our trees.
Are we muted?
You can independently mute yourself, but I
Okay.
requested that we try to relax and be quiet and be on mute while we're waiting another minute for more of our community to arrive.
Okay.
Great time to use the chat to say hi visually to people that you collaborate with environmentally that you may not have seen for a while.
Hmm.
Say that.
Hello?
welcome people that are still coming on. We're going to wait another 30 seconds or so. Feel free to use the chat to greet people you know or the group in general.
Did you have a nice walk?
And I hear someone speaking. This is a good time to be on mute. But if you really feel called to say something, you can go ahead. This is a great swath of community we have showing up tonight. People caring about the environment and expressing that care in a multiplicity of ways. So it is very cool to be together.
To be on,
I might be on, yeah,
continue.
continue.
I don't need to take over at this point. Then, you know how to do the rest, right?
I could be on video.
And you can make it bigger.
Said you just tap it, right? In theory,
No, for what?
just to get the cursor to.
No, you don't just tap, you click. So let me watch you click. Yeah.
Not working.
This is technology, man. This is people in technology making it work
Yeah, I probably just
for
want
a
to do.
good cause, which is
low,
cool.
And then I want to eat food.
Well, I can leave you now, right?
Oh, do you have you have a tape over the camera?
Oh, yes.
Oh, sorry, I just knocked it off.
Yeah. So
Got
there's
it.
people that spy on me.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for helping each other out. And I will appreciate support as the evening goes on. So we're going to start. People will be joining us all through the night. That's cool.
No.
So my name is Claudia Sperber. I am on the Environmental Justice Committee of the Leon County Democratic Executive Committee. And I am so proud and inspired always to be working with Max Epstein and Asa Hicks and Dana Martin, and the whole energy and the grassroots passion that is really engaging in our local Democratic Party right now. We are excited to be listening more closely to what people are articulating as their concerns, whether it's a poverty issue, whether it's an environmental issue, and especially whether it's the intersection of those two things. We are here. I observed a thread of a conversation on a Facebook site that Max and Lucia, for those that are really local, know what I'm talking about, on the Historic Structures and Heritage Trees site. Jeff Vandermeer posted this thread and boom, there was energy. There was a lot of energy on this thread, and it was specifically about, one, a lot of distress about intensive tree trimming and how that was affecting on such a visceral level as well as a rational level. And then boom, that springboarded into him articulating an idea about how can we collaboratively get more organized to protect our trees here in the local. And there were so many comments on there that I felt the support because of the Democratic Executive Committee that I'm sitting on now to tune into that conversation and say, hey, we can offer a platform. We can offer a community structure for people to come together as sort of a meeting of the minds around what I'm calling, and Jeff is probably going to hate, but for the moment, the Vandermeer idea, which is not a big deal, right? People have been collectively wanting to take care of land throughout history, and there's a resurgence of that all around the country. But we're not only going to focus on the Vandermeer idea, we're going to make space for additional ideas. And the idea is collaboration to action. We're not pie in the sky, so we know it takes a while to get anything done, but we know through collaboration and organization and focus, sometimes the good guys win. Sometimes we can protect the earth and the people that inhabit it. So our evening is grounded in this sense of community collaboration, interest and focus. And our main goal is to walk out of this meeting with a sense that there is one idea that we could all get together on. That there's one idea that, for example, the Environmental Justice Committee can serve as a hub to help organize, but not at all exclusively. right? The Democratic Party, we're not trying to own this idea. We're trying to provide a platform to support community to move it forward. Very briefly, what is environmental justice and how is it different from pure environmentalism? Very, very briefly, the justice aspect of environment means that we understand that human beings are mammals, are animals, we are part of the ecosystem, and we have to center and focus on racial and economic and other equity justice issues and think of that as we are thinking about the earth. Many people argue that a core problem is the idea that there is people and then there is nature. So I want to offer that we also think of tonight a more of a permaculture idea that we are actually part of the system. We are not trying to help save nature. We're actually trying to help save ourselves because the earth is our home, right? So we are part of it. And when we bring that justice energy, that justice analysis to specifically think about how do our ideas for the environment also integrate with our ideas for racial, wealth, and equity justice, we're going to be so much stronger. So that's the environmental justice grounding in this environmental discussion tonight. Okay, another tenet we're going to assume is that most of us agree that development on the whole is getting out of control, that development is starting to swallow our city. We're not going to have a debate tonight about whether development is totally good or totally bad, or people can take that offline. But we're going to take it as an assumption that we have problems with the way development is happening in this city, and that is affecting us environmentally. It is also affecting the human, the race, the class, the wealth issues, and how that's looking in our city. So we want to think about how can we protect our trees and our green space in the face of pretty egregious and violent development. And now we have a moment to put our brains together and try to generate a more cohesive and intentional plan and to get more people involved. We offer the Environmental Justice Committee as one of the hubs as a way to do that. So Max Epstein, can you just wave your hand? I think many people know you here. Okay, Dana. So Max is the chair of the Environmental Justice Committee, and we're going to hear him speak along with Jeff Vandermeer in a little bit. Dana, can you wave your hand for those that are on screen with her? Dana is the secretary, and I want to let you know that Dana is finding her voice and her power because this protection of the earth is what really speaks to her. So Dana, I'm so glad you're here with us. Anasa, are you here, and can you wave your hand?
I think she's in, he said she's in the waiting room to get in.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Okay, I did not
wanted
know
to
I
give
had
you a
it
second to finish before I let you know.
Okay, Anasa Hicks, who I will hope to liberate from the waiting room shortly, is a professor of history at FSU. And NASA brings to this discussion and to our environmental justice work an intense rigor of scholarship, an acuity of analysis, and a very organized pragmatism. So I'm relying on Anasa to help with the organization tonight, and I hope I can figure out how to get her into the waiting room. So I'm going to ask Jeff to talk a little bit about who he is and what his idea is while I work on Anasa. And let me tell you first the structure of the night, because that's going to involve Jeff speaking and also Max and perhaps one or two more people. To begin, we're going to have a first round of brainstorming. So we're going to hear from a few people that have a few clear ideas. They're not going to go deep into those ideas now. We're just going to hear them. That's our first round of brainstorming. Our second round is going to be everybody. You're going to go into your chat and you're going to write 1, 2, or 3 ideas that you have that are collaborative, and actionable to protect trees and protect green space. If you are into the Vandermeer idea, which he's going to talk about, which is basically coming up with a collaborative land trust or a land fund. If you like that idea, list that in the chat as one of your ideas when we get to it. I'll walk you through this part again. And then we're going to go through what we've brainstormed, and NASA, who I'll hopefully liberate from the waiting room soon, is going to organize those ideas and group them into themes. Then we're going to look at our top 2 ideas. One of them is going to be the Vandermeer idea. And we're going to talk about that and develop some action steps to move forward. So, Jeff, this is our first time of seeing each other in person. Hey.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here. And can you talk about what you're thinking? And I'm going to shut up and get a NASA in here.
Yeah, sure. And if you don't know, I've written some books that are set in North Florida or nominally in North Florida that have gotten some attention. That's allowed me to use that as a platform for talking about environmental issues, sometimes national ones and sometimes about North Florida. And so, can you hear me? Okay, someone shouted, so I wasn't sure what's going on. Okay, so so basically, that's what I bring to the table is this brand recognition for a particular kind of fiction that is environmental, that allows me to have some leverage or some audience that might be interested in biodiversity in North Florida, because the biodiversity here is actually off the charts compared to a lot of the rest of the world, and it's only rising because despite development, we're not destroying it as fast as it's being destroyed in other places. So sadly, we keep kind of moving up in terms of the biodiversity here being somewhere in the top 20 in the US or something like that. But in any event, so that's where I'm coming from, and thanks for inviting me to listen to this community and put in my 2 cents. I'm sorry that I haven't been on Facebook. There was a login conflict, so I would have been pushing this and talking about it, but I've not actually been on Facebook for the last 2 weeks. And I would also say I'm not an expert by any means, and there are a lot of gaps in my environmental knowledge, so I'm not trying to pretend that I'm an expert or anything. But I also know that thinking outside the box and trying unconventional ideas may be of use, even at the same time that I don't want to reinvent the wheel or anything, or do something that someone's already doing. So that keeping that in mind, and also keeping in mind, of course, social justice values, which I think have to be hardwired into all of this stuff. I had a few kind of subsidiary ideas that I'm just briefly going to talk about, since I knew this meeting was going to come up, and then go into the land thing. And this will only take like 5 to 7 minutes. If you're lucky. In talking to the head forester for Tallahassee, it's clear that they have no program to promote mature trees. They only have sapling promotion through the Adopt a Tree program. So she basically point blank said that she really thinks that saplings are the way to go, and had no real interest in promoting mature trees. So that, and then also, so canopy protection, and then also canopy restoration, which I think is a social justice issue, are both things that can boil down to what you might call PR campaigns that don't have to require the city to do anything. They just require citizens to gather together and more or less kind of educate and promote things in a way that might, especially with the canopy protection, be very, very effective with landowners. The canopy restoration, of course, is more of a thing that might require money behind it. The recognition and creation of greenways for wildlife, which I do think has a big deal to do with trees. When I was growing up, a greenway was for wildlife. The way Blueprint does greenways, a greenway is first of all for human traffic, which is fine, but also pretty much devoid of any wildlife value. And there's no reason that those 2 things can't be combined, and they're becoming more and more important as we have a more and more fragmented environment in Tallahassee, and animals have less of a way to go from place to place. I think Max is probably going to talk about the new or revised tree ordinance, which I don't have any knowledge of, but was another thing on my list that seems to make a sense. And with regard to development, all I would say is if there were some way to create rewards or incentive or publicity for less harsh development, and promote developers who don't clear cut, because there are a couple in town who generally don't and also use native plants, that would be very useful. Of course, the most useful thing would be to somehow redirect the brain trust at Blueprint away from their kind of anti-tree stance with regard to infrastructure and everything else, because their mission statement really does seem to not take the actual landscape that we live in into account with a lot of the things that they're doing. And I'm not going to go into depth on that, but even like this Market Square bike path sidewalk thing they're doing from Benton to Market Square looks like it's going to destroy a lot of habitat when maybe it doesn't actually need to, and trees. So even things that seem like that they're really great often seem to be planned like they're being planned by somebody who was a planner in the 1980s or something. The other thing is none of this should be at odds with things like affordable housing in terms of messaging or anything like that. There's absolutely no reason for that. Most of the development we're talking about and the tree cutting is for expensive houses in ways that are very energy sapping or not very friendly with regard to renewable energy or anything like that. The thing that comes with that development and the tree loss is the creation of these ridiculous storm ponds that are useless. And so dealing with that issue is another thing, because what happens is the trees are cut down and then we get all these other bad side effects dumped on top of that. My specific idea, which was expressed generally in the Facebook post, was a kind of a land preservation fund. The reason I'm kind of shying away from that term is I'm pretty much a low hierarchy, no bureaucracy person. And anything that I would want to be involved with would have to have really low overhead, and pretty much 100% of the money or very close to it would have to actually go into conservation. One idea I did have when I did that Facebook post was the idea of using the name recognition of Annihilation and the Southern Reach, which is a term that's associated with that novel, to raise money. And so, for example, one aspect of this would be a bifurcation where there's maybe a local money raising fund, and then there's something wider that would be called something like a Southern Reach Land Preservation Fund, or whatever you want to call it, that was for Tallahassee in North Florida, where I would basically raise money off of that name and bring it back into the community. And I find that might work very well. I mean, we basically were able to help Peter, I always get hung up on his last name, help protect a cypress swamp plot by raising $16,000. I've got a limited edition publisher who at one point was willing to pledge $25,000 out of proceeds from publishing one of my books. Macmillan right now is considering a proposal from my agent to take money from each copy of my books that are sold and put it into land preservation in this area. So that's why I say that could be very effective. And I first kind of shied away from it because it seems a little vainglorious to me, but it also seems a little irresponsible not to use that name cachet if it can actually help us raise money. So there's that. As to what it should actually protect, my vision in talking about it on Facebook at least was, places like the Nature Conservancy and Audubon protect larger plots of land, and definitely things that are definitely seen as environmentally sensitive. Well, we have a lot of land we're losing in Tallahassee that's at the margins, things that should be kept as easements, for example. Properties that, we just saw Bolos, the guy who weeps every time he cuts down a tree, apparently, according to the Democrat, leaves town. I'd actually kind of like to see those travel records, clear cutting a bunch of what were single home properties on Thomasville, right above where it dips down into what looks like a floodplain, and they're just completely clear cut. Are those the kind of properties that the landowner might have been receptive to keeping? Was that of value? Were there a ton of threatened box turtles on that property, for example? The city and county seem to think box turtles grow on trees, but they're actually a threatened species. The problem is that they're not endangered or not classified as such. So that's kind of a keystone species that also makes me think about, what do we mean when we mean land preservation? What is it we're trying to keep in terms of biodiversity, and how can that also dovetail with human needs and quality of life? So those are the things I was thinking, is getting those parcels that seem like they're unimportant, but are also manageable. Like I don't feel like we can go after like a $4 million plot or even a $250,000 plot, but what if we can accumulate over time a bunch of $10,000 to $25,000 parcels? Is that a value? That's a question too. Is that a value or is it not? But those are the things I was thinking of with regard to how we can establish some control over this, and what that process would look like, because many times you may not have a whole lot of time to assess a property or to come up with the money before someone's selling something. And then also you may be outbid and things like that. So it feels to me that there would be a lot of value in people in the community who really care about this, kind of being on the lookout and talking to their neighbors and, saying these are some options you might not have thought of if you ever have to sell your land or you have a vacant lot next to you that you own or something.
Hey,
Here
Jeff,
in, yes,
Jeff,
and
I'm gonna jump in here.
Yeah.
Because I want to keep our brainstorm structure.
yeah, well, that's about it anyway. So
So what, can you help me do this? And I think so many people on this call tonight are excited and energized about that vision. Can you articulate that kind of one more time, just in a succinct, kind of from the gut kind of way?
I think succinct rather than from the gut would just be that the idea would be to raise money for small parcels that often fall below the regard or the interest of the large conservation organizations, and that are probably mostly within the city limits, just as a constraint to make it manageable, perhaps.
Ding. Awesome. Thank you. Anassa, I hear that you are here and not stuck in the waiting room. Is that true?
Yes, I'm here. Hi.
Okay, awesome. Can we see you for a sec? Okay, everybody give a shout out to Anassa Hicks. She is the vice chair of the Environmental Justice Committee. And we rely a lot on her organizational and kind of scholarship skills. So Anassa, can you note Jeff's idea, which was small parcels of land, focus within city limits, collaborative money, to then be ready when a potential purchase or development of that land comes up? Jeff, is that roughly ballpark the thing? All right, cool. Okay, Max.
Yes. All right.
Go for it.
Well, thank you, Jeff. I really love that idea. I would like to see us protecting bigger parcels and more expensive parcels, but that's going to be a heavier lift. And I think we can start with these smaller pieces. And I'm sorry if you hear a bird screaming in the background, but it's his bedtime, so he's going to yell for a little bit. But really, and it was mentioned here in the chat, that we need to get away from what's called mitigation. And mitigation in the development world, all this is basically you make up for destroying something instead of actually preserving or conserving it in the first place. And Jeff mentioned that, these wetlands are being clear cut around them without a buffer, and the permitting department is allowing this to happen. So they're preserving the wetlands, right? But everything's clear cut around it. So I see three things that we need to do. First, we need to actually take our urban forest master plan, which was created back in 2018. And if you visit their website, it has a bunch of different goals. Only 3 of those have been met. In progress are tree inventory, update tree regulations, development analysis, and outreach. But I don't think this is happening on purpose, because it seems like our local government wants to have these developments appear. And Tabitha's idea of also a ballot initiative is basically, I think, what we're working on right now. So I guess the cat is out of the bag. We are working on a new tree ordinance that will protect our heritage trees but also offer a way to develop in a sound manner. Look, we're not going to save every tree, but we need to make sure that it happens in environmentally sound fashion. And, you know, we see a lot of these tiny little trees that are planted, again, as Jeff has said, these saplings that will never make up for large trees. So I think that we need to start looking at planting larger trees, requiring that larger trees are planted when bigger trees have to be taken down. And we also need to look at these regulations like Tabitha said, where we need to make sure that at least a certain portion of these pieces of land that are developed are kept wild. And, you know, we can go down this whole rabbit hole again of blueprint and where our tax dollars are going. But it seems to me that our economy here in Tallahassee is based on a few things. And one of the top spots is nature. It's our trees. It's why I live here. I've lived in Orlando. I've lived in Tampa, pretty much all over Florida. And I like it here because we have a natural setting. And at least until recently, you know, we were basically forced to keep some of these things.
And I'm gonna jump in here, Max. We're looking right now, we're gonna keep this short.
Sure.
We'll have to discuss later, and we're going for kind of clear, actionable plan. So we got from you ballot initiative, which we're hearing Tabitha Frazier of Leon Trees voicing strongly in the chat as well. It's awesome. You had a couple other things. Do you want to recap those?
Well, yeah, a lot of this comes down to money, unfortunately. We can get ahead of this with the ordinances and change the process in our growth management department. But if you look at the urban forest master plan, it says that we need between $500 and $1 million per year extra to be able to run that urban forest master plan. So, and I'll finish up here. I think we need two things. We need an updated ordinance, and perhaps we need a taxpayer funded ballot initiative that provides $1 million per year. Imagine the CSC, which was just recently passed, but a much smaller version of that per year. Maybe it's going to tack on $10 a person in property tax. I think that would really help out. So those are my two ideas.
Okay, great. Max, can you restate that one more time? A funded ballot initiative?
Just an idea is a ballot initiative. Okay. It will have a tax associated like the CSC, which raises about $7 million a year. How about $1 million, $1 million a year? That and a new tree ordinance. And yeah, those are my two.
Thank you. Okay, Anassa, my note taker, how are we doing? We've got from Max an updated tree ordinance and a ballot initiative that would generate funds. Okay, so we have time for one more person to speak. Then we're going to move into everybody doing a big blitz brainstorm that's written in the chat. And we are going to be like catching like a net a bunch of ideas that through the week we're going to sift through, that I and my team are going to sift through. So what I'd like to do is open up the floor, particularly for someone that does not normally speak, particularly for someone that may not be any kind of tree expert or any kind of tree activist per se, but has thoughts, feelings, or ideas about something concrete, even if it seems crazy, that might work. Part of the goal here is to open up community voices. So I'm going to shut up. Everybody came here tonight for a reason, right? You didn't just randomly fall into a Zoom called Protect the Trees. You are here for a reason. I'd like a little sapling to grow a little stronger tonight in terms of a person. So let's all be quiet, and we're going to hope that someone will feel awkward enough and pressured enough that they will say something. And even if it's just an echo and an assertion and a confirmation of their passion for Jeff's idea or Max's ideas, whatever, let's see who might arise.
I would like to speak. My name
We're
is Sue. Hi, I'm not on video. Hold on a second.
Oh, wonderful.
Hi, there I am. My name is Sudie Scott, and I've been working with Ann Bidley-Meyer and Max some, and on a draft of the new a new older ordinance going back to what we had used prior, like before 2000 and early 2000s, and that Randy Dinker wrote the skeleton of, and we have been updating slowly over this last year. We're to a point that we need experts from trees, because I'm not an expert. I'm just super passionate about it. And a collaboration of the tree experts that are organizations in town, so that they can help collaborate, but also as supporters, so that we have numerous organizations, just not you guys. There's Leon Trees, there's organizations that have worked on this, but a tree ordinance does need to be finalized, and we need some tree experts to help us out with that. We're to that point that one thing we need to do is come up with fines. Right now there's debits and credits, and if they don't abide by the regulations currently, they can or they pay twice the amount of the permit amount, or up to 3 times the amount of the permit amount. And it's just not enough. And there's not enough control. And there's then the ideas that you guys have brought up tonight of having a media blitz and getting people to vote for this, to Max can take over that part of it, but we're almost there. And then we need to know what we're going to do with it and how we're going to strong arm, if that needs to be a word, and convince local government that they need to make some drastic changes. How are we going to do that?
I'm going to jump in here. And what I'm hearing from you is you're on a project, you need a tree expert. You've got an idea for fines, which
Yes.
sounds very strong. And if there's one more short phrase of an idea, because we're on an initial brainstorm right now, and we're going to go deeper into ideas a little bit later. So are you good, or do you have one more specific bullet point you want to?
No, that's good.
Share? Thank you so much. Okay. Does everybody have a piece of paper or a notebook and a pen or pencil? Or are you very versatile in switching screens around better than I am? So what I want to ask is this. First off, that we write down the email address for the Environmental Justice Committee, because I'm going to ask for as many people as possible to thresh out their ideas and email them to us. Okay, as you can tell, Max may be a lead on tree knowledge. I am not. I want to be a lead on helping the community reach its goals, grounded in very strong progressive democratic values. So in our brainstorm that we're going to be doing in a moment, written on the chat, it's not the time to go deep into your ideas, but everyone may have details, specific questions, specific pros and cons of their ideas. So I'm asking that people email that to us so we can catch it all and work through it. So where you email is following. Again, I'm hoping you can write this down somewhere. It's environment.
Could you please post it in the chat?
That is a brilliant idea. Max, can you do that for me? So it's environment@leondems.com. We are not the only hub here, far from it, but I'm offering us as a way to help you organize and get more clear about what you need and what we all need to move these ideas forward, because we're not going to be able to talk about everyone's ideas tonight. but we want to get it together and we want to hear from you more fully with more depth what you're thinking. Okay, that's the first written down thing. Are we all good with that? Okay. Now what I want to ask, some of you may already have been doing this in the chat. If you're comfortable, we want to be able to stay connected, right? Because our goal is to come out with one actionable plan that we can move forward on collaboratively. We have a multiplicity of ideas though, so people can bring those ideas to who you're already working with and as well to the Environmental Justice Committee. So we've got a lot of ideas, but we do want to center this meeting tonight on getting strong on one. It may not be the best one. It may not be the only one. It may not be the most winnable one, but there's a lot to be said for focus. There's a lot to be said for being on point. So in the chat now, if you're comfortable, please give us your full name, your email, and your cell number. If you're not confident or comfortable to do that publicly, email that to us. Because together we're stronger, right? We know an individual tree, when it's planted, according to science, does not live as long. It's more resilient, it's less resilient, it's weaker. Trees in a forest, even if it's a small forest, they're stronger. So let's get more organized here. So please put your names in the chat fully, contact information. And that way, because I don't want this conversation just to be like an interesting evening and then it's done. That's not the point. This is a start. And to organize us along a specific line, we got to get it together. So I'm being quiet, just giving people time. If you can, in one chat block, give us your information as much as you feel comfortable to share. Email it if you want to keep it private. If you don't want to do any of that, that's cool too. Alex Du, I'm glad you're here, by the way. Okay. As people are finishing putting in their information, I'm going to ask now that people use the chat and write down 1, 2, or 3 ideas, short and sweet and clear. If you like the Vandermeer idea of creating a collaborative pool of money, that would be something like a land fund to be able to buy and protect small parcels in Tallahassee. If that feels actionable and doable, list that as one of the ideas you're interested in. And then you can have 2 more to put whatever you want. So think and write. Even if you already wrote it down, please do it again.
Claudia, so you want us to put down which idea we're in favor of and have people restate their ideas from earlier in the evening if they wrote some?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No one get hung up on all the various obstacles. All good ideas have obstacles. I wrote Jeff this morning. I grew up in the Hudson River Valley in New York, in between 2 large mountains. One mountain faced an enormous development onslaught. It was huge. And this mountain was like very close. It was like 10 minutes away from the center of town. My father was a lead organizer on that fight. It took years and it was successful and it was lasting and it was permanent. I can still go hike that mountain and swim in the waterfalls and eat berries to this day. It is not a Marriott gambling casino. resort as it was going to be. And that was huge money. It was huge money. It was so many people on the board of the village wanted that because of the revenue it would bring in. But through a really rigorous organization, that got blocked. So I grew up with that. I know this can happen. I know structures can be set up where people can contribute money to buy land. People are doing this all over the country. It can work, but it's not easy. We don't have all the answers right now. That's okay. We just want to get started on one thing.
Claudia, this is Tabitha. Do you mind if I say a few words?
Tabitha, go right ahead. You've got the floor for 3 minutes.
Awesome. I think I mentioned this to you before. Jeff, I love the idea of buying land. I think we should talk to the Coastal Plains Research Institute. That's exactly what they do. It was started by Bruce Means, a local ecologist, and his son, Harley Means, and his wife, Rebecca, own it. Anyway, I would be curious to hear what taxes they pay, what category, and it is literally just, anyway, it's called Coastal Plains Land Conservancy, and they're right here in Tallahassee. The other things I was going to say, I have a lot of institutional history about the trees and what's going on here in Leon County. And I really think a ballot initiative is the way to go. And there should be two. One is we say no land, every development must keep 30%, 40%, a realistic number. Number two, we should come up with a tree size in the city limits. It's going to be impossible when we talk about the county, but we can do a city ordinance, which is a much smaller area, and come up with something. I think 12 inches diameter is a great number, and the city, not city of Jacksonville, Duval County passed a 12-inch diameter ordinance 16 years ago. That's why I got the idea for a ballot initiative. It's really not that hard. Or instead of doing a ballot initiative, all we need is 3 city commissioners to vote for it, and it's on a ballot. We don't have to collect signatures. And so I know at the city, we probably already have Jack and Jeremy. So if we lobby one other commissioner, they can vote for it and it will be on the ballot. But something that we all need to keep in mind, the roads are determined what trees go where and what size. If it's a DOT road, they have their own trees, their own determinants. A county road has their own trees, their own determinants. A city road has their own trees and own determinants. And it goes down the pipeway. City takes precedent over county. County takes precedent over city. So as we move forward, I encourage everyone to look at what trees, because the state of Florida will not even allow you to plant a live oak tree on the right of way. That's why we have so many crepe myrtles and holly trees. They are incredibly limited. That's something that we can work with our legislators about. The people that pick the trees for Tallahassee live in Chipley. That's where the office is. So that's it. That's my spiel. But I'm Tabitha Frazier with Leon Trees, which is basically a tree inventory. Thank you, Claudia.
Tabitha, thank you so much.
Could I add something to what Tabitha just said? This is Martha Williams.
Martha, I'm going to ask you in the favor of the structure, if you could put it in the chat.
As I have been doing. Okay.
Thank you so much. And I'm gonna hope that it will spring right into the ideas that we're gonna have a discussion on in just a moment. Okay, so now I'm gonna ask Anassa to take a look at the chat, and we're gonna look for our top 2 ideas, and if we have an outlier, because sometimes in the weeds are some really good ideas. So Anassa, are you with me on that project? Oh, and you are muted.
Yes, sorry, I was maximizing the chat screen and then I couldn't get back to this one. But yes, I think this one might be an outlier, but I think it seems like an important point to bring up. Marianne, you've mentioned in the chat that the science doesn't necessarily agree with the idea that we need to plant larger trees as opposed to smaller trees. You referenced a study that said that smaller trees might be the way to go. And someone else noted, so I guess this is maybe a common theme, it's important that the trees we plant be native trees. and not trees that are not indigenous to this area. But it sounds like it might be true that smaller native trees are fine as opposed to prioritizing larger trees, even though ideally, obviously, we want them to become big.
Thank you, Anessa. That sounds indeed like a strong outlier idea that is actionable, because what we're looking for is clear, the beginnings of clear, concrete stuff that we can do to make happen. Not that it's going to happen overnight, but there's clarity to it and that we can organize around it. So I'm going to hold that as one of our ideas. And the other two, Anessa will correct me if I'm wrong. I'm thinking it's the Vandermeer idea, the collecting of a land fund and tree ordinances around, I believe it's specifically around trimming.
Yes, yeah, lots of people expressed support for Jeff's idea about a collaborative fund to buy land, and then yes, a lot of people expressed support for a tree ordinance, and there are some, lots of people said they support the tree ordinance and then had specific ideas about what they think that the content of that ordinance should be. Also, I'll just say this might be another outlier, but it seems actionable. Someone recommended, I can't find who did, that we should look into joining the Old Growth Forest Network. And I looked up that website, and there are old growth forests registered in Crawfordville and in Panama City Beach, or near those areas, but not closer to Leon County.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, Old Growth Forest Network, cool. Okay, we're going to take a pause here for a moment, and I want to ask everyone to either stretch or get up or get some water or breathe, because we are part of the ecosystem here, and getting too tight and stressed or blurry on a screen is not productive. So take a chill. And if you can mute, that would be good. All right, some of us may still be chilling and breaking. That's cool. While we're ready to regroup, I want to ask for a couple volunteers who can help the Environmental Justice Committee within the next 2 weeks, who can contribute 2 hours of time to help us organize information and start to research and look into some of these ideas. This is probably clear, but I want to reiterate, none of us are getting paid to do this. All of us here, and especially on the EJ being short for Environmental Justice Committee, we are all working, or we are in school, or we are raising children. We are busy and tired, and we are passionate, and we're collaborative. So I'm asking for at least 2 people to be able to contribute a 2-hour chunk of time in the next 2 weeks to help collate information and to be willing to start looking into some of these ideas. Who can find 2 hours in the next week or 2 to help? You can unmute or raise your hand.
Claudia, I would love to help, but I just said I'm in the ballot initiative, but I am incredibly I was a member of the DEC, but this is a nonpartisan community issue. I can think of lots of people that are Republicans that are just as upset about trees. And so I'm all about a ballot initiative. I just think that if we move forward with that, it should not be under the guise of, anyway, I'm grateful to you guys for doing that, but those are my only comments on that. As we move forward, I'd like it to be just a community issue.
I totally appreciate your thoughts and really look forward to more conversation about it. For now, I'm looking for 2 people that could help organize information or do some researching into these ideas? Going once.
I would, but my husband would kill me.
That would not be good. Okay, if you feel that you are up for helping with this, thank you, Sudi. Sudi and Kelly, awesome. Okay, can you, let me just, Anessa, can you grab their names down? And thank you so much. There are so many ways that people can work collaboratively to protect the trees. So however you want to do it is great. Here, I really appreciate that some people stepped up to help us with this information. Okay, now we are going to go deeper into idea number 1. And that is going to be brainstorming around collaboratively putting in money for a land fund. Nobody gets stressed that we can't figure out how to do that tonight. Of course we can't. But we can all contribute to ideas about how we can proceed to move forward on this. And I'm going to ask people that are more expert to hold back so we can first let people that are newer to thinking about this talk. And Jeff, this idea is linked to you. So can you start out, again, you were starting to talk about some particular ideas you had that triggered ideas for me, and I am definitely not a tree expert. But if you can, again, think about any kind of nuts and bolts stuff about how you were thinking about doing this. And then if people want to speak, raise your hand. Max, can you help to watch out for that?
The only thing I would say is that I didn't really come here expecting the land fund to become part of this organization. Only because I can unilaterally raise money by myself based on what I said to begin with. And it's fine to like have that be in a communal plot, but it seems to me that if there is an actual like land fund that you all want to set up, that's a separate issue. I want to do this as non-hierarchically as possible. That doesn't mean without community support and not within the community. It just means having had experience with organizations and whatnot, and knowing my own talent set, it's really kind of important that I just like do part of this myself. I don't know how else to put that. That doesn't mean like doing the part where it's like where it's allocated. But you know, I'm planning on going ahead and raising this money anyway. You know, where it goes is a different issue. So I guess what I'm seeing in terms of work process is a little different than what you're envisioning. You know, like so it's a little bit difficult to kind of brainstorm on this in the context that you want to. I also feel like, to be absolutely honest, that there's people who are comfortable commenting in a chat box and people who aren't. So I feel like we're leaving some people out who might comment in more depth and give us more analysis, you know, maybe for a longer meeting if they could actually speak, as opposed to just type a few words into a chat box. But so I'm not really sure. Maybe I should recuse myself from this conversation and see what other people envision this being. I guess what I would say is I'd be more than happy to give funds to a land fund if you all do a land fund. But in terms of the infrastructure of that, I know my own time constraints, and I can't do that. So.
Sure, Jeff, thank you. I think what is so great is the idea and what you're interested in. And so many people voiced enthusiasm about that. So it sounds to me like you are set in terms of wanting to move forward yourself and establishing a land fund. And you may or may not be open to other people contributing to it.
No, what I'm saying is that people would contribute to it, but in terms of what if you all have a strong, develop a strong feeling about where it should be spent, then monies that I raise or that other people put in, because other people would contribute to this, I guess the point is I already have an organization called Vandermeer Creative that funds things and that takes donations and whatnot. So basically it would be run through that. And then there would be simply money that then could be allocated to either an existing organization or a new one if we need some kind of infrastructure for Tallahassee specifically. The coastal thing is fine. Do they operate within Tallahassee limits, city limits? Do they buy land here? Okay, well, see, that's why I begin to wonder if that's a separate issue, for example.
Tabitha, if you're trying to
I think
answer
she's
that
trying to
question, you're
answer.
muted.
Yeah.
You're muted, Tabitha.
Yeah, they're located here. Jeff, I'll send you the link. Bruce Means was a biology professor. He still is at Florida State. He's a herpetologist, and a lot of this comes from, he's big into preserving wetlands, and he's about animal migration from certain wetlands. And so they have a few preserves, but I mean, he was my professor 25 years ago, and he was just like, we just have to stop the development. So we created this land trust. And so I just think that that would be, I mean, I have a nonprofit, but I know nothing about a land trust. And I just know there's probably taxes.
Oh, Tabitha, so sorry, we lost you. And
I don't want to get off on a tangent. My question was whether they have bought a lot of property within city limits, because that was the scope of what I was planning on doing.
I think we just completely lost her.
Okay.
She just dropped out, but
I know Rebecca personally.
Anyway, I think that's as much as I have to offer right now. And it's not that I mean to be unilateral. I'm just saying that in terms of what my participation is, that's probably what it would look like.
Jeff, I think rather than that being something to apologize for, I think it is totally freaking awesome. If you have an infrastructure that is set up to move forward to buy and care for small parcels of land, that is awesome. And there may be people in a completely nonpartisan way, of course, that would love to contribute to that. So it sounds like that's great. Is that the case, or can you keep us posted if it comes to be the point that people can contribute money?
Well, I mean, it depends on whether people want to actually spend the time to be involved in the analysis of what needs to actually be preserved that isn't being preserved by other organizations, I guess. I mean, if I wasn't having this conversation, I'd probably go right to like Max, for example, or just a few people and determine it that way. But if there is some way that a larger committee or something is interested in contributing to that information and expertise, and I certainly take the point about, not reinventing how you do a land fund, for example. But I also want local expertise that has to do with what's actually happening in Tallahassee, not outside of Tallahassee. So I guess that's the main point I was making.
Sure. And excuse me, Jeff, what I'd also say is the ordinance, these land trusts, we're having this discussion right now as the EJ committee, but we're all from different organizations. We're all different politically, have different views. So I personally view this as independent, from these political confines. So I know just as many Republicans who are pissed at seeing clear-cut landscapes as Democrats. So, and okay.
I want to jump in here to say that this conversation tonight is a community platform to spring off of. So there is 100% no need to stay grounded in the Democratic Party to move any of this forward. What I'm excited about as a Democrat is to provide a community platform where people can come together about their values and move things forward. So there's not a partisan stress. Anyone can be on this call, and anyone can get together and work collaboratively in any mode that works for them. So what I just heard is Jeff say, well, he would go to people like Max who know trees, and maybe Max can organize some other tree people and work on this some. Is that something that maybe Max can talk about with Jeff offline? But that sounds like one productive way of moving forward.
Sure.
on this land trust. Are there other people on this call who know something about trees? We know Tabitha does. We may have lost her, and I'm sorry about that. But there could be people that know about trees that are quiet, that we
Well-
don't actually know. Is there anybody here that wants to give a shout out now that would like to work with Max on identifying areas that could be really worth protecting in small parcels, groups of trees in the city?
That, and I also see Shelby has her hand up. I don't know if she wants to say something.
Shelby.
Yeah, hey guys, hey everyone. I'm Shelby Green. I just wanted to offer my skills in like GIS and mapping and site suitability analysis at whatever point it needs to be used for this discussion or idea of a land trust. And then I wanted to add a perspective. When it comes to buying lower priced parcels of land in the city limits, a lot of those are going to be in communities that are on the south or west side of Tallahassee. And so I would like to encourage, if like the analysis is done and parcels are most available in those areas, that there is a discussion or notice to the neighborhoods or communities in that area before the parcel is being brought. A lot of vacant lots are also what became vacant because homes are on them. And so maybe just like what I would like to do is offer my skills so that we can find land that is more suitable for conservation versus land that became vacant and is more suitable for homes on them.
Yeah, and
so that's just what I wanted to offer.
I think that's great. And I think that would have to be kind of a component of it anyway. And I'd love to have your expertise on that. And also that suggests another another need for money, which is the kinds of lots you're talking about that don't need conservation, but need to be, like you said, that need to have homes on them. But yes, definitely, absolutely, of course. So
okay, cool. Yeah, I just wanted to add that. But if
that's a good point.
Yeah, if it gets to a point of you guys finally figured out, okay, we're gonna move forward with this, I'd be happy to offer any mapping skills at that time.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you very much. I'll actually probably DM you on Twitter later about that. Thanks.
Yeah, Shelby, I want to echo Jeff's thanks. That was so spot on. Thank you. I, in fact, have that in my notes and left them. So I really appreciate your voice and your consciousness here to offer those practical skills and the environmental justice awareness. What I encourage people to do is not only think about parcels of land, but parcels of land that are embedded and near and involved in neighborhoods, and who lives on those neighborhoods and how do they interface with the land. And we don't want to ever eclipse their voices. That is the history of big environmental groups buying land, is that there's very little real engagement with the people that live there. And we don't want to keep replicating that. That's part of the problem, not part of the solution. So I see a connection with Shelby and Max and Jeff moving forward, and that is very cool. More ideas on, okay, do people want to talk more about additional land trust? We may
if you don't mind, could I make the suggestion that we just kind of open it up a little bit in general? Because I don't know how long we're scheduled here, but if people have thoughts about trees or land trusts or basically kind of whatever at this point.
I love that idea. I want to stay a little bit longer with the structure so we can talk about land trusts if anyone wants to speak on that. I also want to make sure we can have a theme of tree ordinance and balance initiative, because that was one of the ideas that people spoke of a lot. So if it's okay, we'll stick with that a little bit, but there should be plenty of open discussion with that. More ideas on cooperatively buying land, particularly from anybody that hasn't spoken.
I'm not sure if this is answering that question, but
Hi, I'm Kara, and I'm very interested in just becoming more vocal as a community about trees and the development that's happening. I grew up here and I moved back about 10 years ago. And in those 10 years, it is breathtaking the amount of trees that have come down right near me. I live next to Walani. And so I just am all for us coming together behind all of the above kind of initiatives. Maybe we need a new committee, like a tree committee or something. I think that part of the problem is if we're not at the table, we're on the menu. And so I feel like we need to organize and we need to get loud. I was disgusted to see that Walani could take down some Canopy Road trees and just get hit with a little fine that I'm sure they just worked into their finances. So I love Jeff's idea. He is offering something. I'm not even sure if everyone is grasping the magnitude of what he's offering, but this is worldwide, his supporters. And so I think that is something that really excited me. Jeff does great things anyway, but this would just be a whole nother thing. And I think the PR that could come from it and the energy could come from it. The commissioners, the developers, they all need to know that this is a group effort and that this has a lot of energy in the community. I've been working on other ordinances and I can tell you it is easier than it's harder than it sounds. Frankly, I've been working on burn ordinance for a year and it's just been unbelievable. So anyway, I just want to say, my background's PR. I would love to help, but I'm really interested in trying to kind of fill out Jeff's vision and come together as a community to make that a reality. And I think that is just an awesome opportunity we have in front of us.
Kara, thank you so much. It helps for you to flesh out how big this vision could be of what Jeff is offering. Jeff, an idea while we're still banging around a bit more on land trust. You mentioned, and I'm hoping it's cool if I say this, that you were going to see if your publisher, is it okay to talk about that a moment?
Yeah, no, I actually mentioned that in my opening comments. The thing that I struggle with regard to a more collaborative situation with regard to what I was thinking about, and I don't mean collaborative on the purchase side or the what makes the most sense, but on the acquiring of the fund side, is that the messaging has to be very general. So at the level of hierarchy, it's not really talking about Tallahassee, it's talking about biodiversity, it's talking about social justice issues on like more of a national or general level, and then making it clear that this is important, because I do think it is. The one reason I fight so hard or want to fight so hard for this area is because it literally is unique. But that is what is going to appeal to them. And then knowing that it's going directly into something like land acquisition gives them a sense of ownership in a good way, or community outside of our community. So that's really what I would like to try to activate as much as possible. And then so this conversation is useful in terms of thinking that, again, it may actually be bifurcated. It may just be that's a separate component that I focus on, and that feeds into something else locally, which may already exist or may need to be created. And I don't think this meeting can determine that aspect, but I do think that this gives me some clarity as to what I have to, as a mission statement, like kind of like separate off as manageable for my time, and also the kind of effort that might actually result in money. So in theory, a limited edition of one of my books could bring in $25,000 for land purchases right off the bat. In theory, Macmillan could say yes to this proposal I have, where $1 from each book sold in the next year goes towards land purchases in Tallahassee or Leon County. I don't know what that would add up to. It might be a lot. I also sell products off of my site that currently support St. Francis, and we've raised like $5,000 for St. Francis that way, but there's no reason why additional designs couldn't be added that actually feed directly into this. So again, I don't know how much that would actually add up to, or if it's significant, or what it should go towards. Maybe, at the end of the day, some of that goes into what you might call PR campaigns, like putting pressure on commissioners about preserving mature canopy and things like that. I don't know. But anyway, that's all. I'm babbling now because I'm tired, but I'll shut up now. Sorry.
Jeff, thank you for speaking on that. The reason I asked you, and you can just mull this around and we'll be in touch after. There may be people here, Kara and others, just a wealth of people that might be able to help put something together to send to your publisher to show how much your readership and how much your readership nationally and internationally would be behind this. So if there are ways that people could help push this and amp it up, I think people would be interested to do that.
Well, I mean, to be absolutely honest, they'll either do it or they won't. It's already in process. So
Awesome.
I don't want to waste their time with that.
Fantastic. Okay, we are going to move to ballot initiatives unless somebody had an idea that they wanted to bring up about collaborative land buying. Wendy, are you thinking or just moving your hand? You're muted.
I know. Okay. I just wanted to follow up on the comment when you said the word collaborative about, and I think it was Max who spoke to this, or maybe it was Jeff, I don't remember, about the criteria for green space acquisition. Because I think that in terms of the government, there are some pretty hard lifts in some of these regulatory issues. Not that I'm all opposed to that, at all opposed to them, but I think the concept of what are those criteria that they're looking at and how are they prioritizing preservation of habitat versus public access, and I don't mean they're necessarily in competition, but is there a way that we can refocus or broaden that focus so that it complements efforts such as a land conservancy? And I think there's a good connection there that I would be interested in looking at more closely.
Wendy, that is fantastic. And looking into it is the thing to do. It is quite possible that we could have a few collaborative land buying and land management operations, because honestly, we're not talking about a lot of money. You know, some of us have some expendable income. Some of us can put in money here or there. So what you're talking about is something that could arise as well as what Jeff is doing. Is there anybody else who is interested in this that could join Wendy in reading a little about it?
I'm happy to read about it and report back.
That would be really great. Can you put that in the chat if you haven't, of what you're going to read about, and then we can follow up with you. A lot can happen when we're focused and we have a sense of direction. And once something starts moving forward, other people can get on board. Thank you. Okay, so a completely different idea is tree ordinances, right? People were very upset, and it's still very upsetting to see how our trees are getting trimmed so hard and that we are losing so many trees so fast. And this relates to our local officials particularly. Who's got ideas about that, or just stuff they want to say?
I'd like to say something about the brutal cutting that I saw that other people have seen recently. And I can't even remember where I saw it, but it was very striking. And I know that's what sort of was the impetus for this meeting, or at least one of them. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
And did we ever find out, or could you tell us if you know why that is so severe at the moment, in a few words? Because I don't know, but I was horrified when I saw it.
And where is this?
Yeah, where is this, Sarah? I can answer, I think, some of the ordinance current ordinance issues.
And I can say, this is not an ordinance issue, but it's why that was happening there. I've been dialoguing with John Tedder in the city governments, and according to him, and he was the one that hired the company that did the particular trimming, and he said it was for the electrical wires. That because we are not underground here in Tallahassee, we are above, and so that is the reason that they are giving. I'm not.
Is it MetroNet that's
No,
doing it?
no, I can answer that for you, because what happened I forgot to mention this, is that I think it was a year or two ago, the company that had the original tree trimming contract fell behind. And it seems as a cost saving measure, they introduced what they call enhanced trimming procedures, which goes from trimming, I think, oaks from 6 feet away from the 4 to 6 feet from the power lines. And this is any tree. I think I have to look back. I think it's 8+ feet. And what that actually is doing is it is weakening the trees. It's going to cause them to fall on these power lines. And it does the complete opposite, but it's being billed. And by the way, this contract was just reauthorized by the city commission. And here I know there were going to be no presentations, but I just want to show you a quick picture of what I showed to the city commission. And this tree, this is in Griffin Heights. You can see the huge tree over here. This is from Google Maps. I pulled it up. This thing's been trimmed for decades, 4 to 6 feet away. Well, they came in and I took a picture of it. I don't know where it went, but they wrecked this tree. And what is it now? It's a stump. And I had a friend who said, well, they just trimmed the tree like that as an excuse to pull it out. Well, this tree, it was over 5'9" because I laid down on it wide. And there's absolutely no reason why this tree should have been excessively trimmed the way it was. And you can see it around town. I mean, these are the trees on the north side of FSU's campus that have been trimmed away from the power lines excessively. And, I just went around and heard this thing has been butchered all over the place. And then what they're really doing in a lot of these instances is they're basically just cutting off half of a tree. And they're letting the other half dangle over the road that's going to injure someone eventually. It's going to fall. And, I think that there's a bigger conversation that we need to have about this. Well, maybe some of these trees do need to come down. But what are we going to plant in their stead, Jack and Jeremy voted against the reauthorization. It was Diane Williams-Cox, John Daly, and Curtis Richardson all went ahead. The other two wanted at least some nuances, as in, an exemption for the live oak trees or other hardwoods. But I think that maybe an email campaign or putting some pressure on them in that respect would be good. But that is one of our major issues right now, is that the contract has gone to Wolf, and I don't know, they are just hacking stuff apart.
Well, that needs to stop, and I really would like to be part of anything that would bring attention to that. The facts.
And maybe that can be part of our ordinance. It has to do with trimming oak trees around power lines and public trees as well. That's one thought.
Great, thank you.
So Max, were you saying that the work on tree ordinances, on looking at tree ordinances, can speak to this really aggressive tree trimming?
I'm not sure, but I think that we can put it in there. Especially for heritage trees. I don't know if it's going to be for every single tree, but I think that we can put in some requirements for public trees on the right of way, which these trees would be.
For anyone who is interested, John Tedder, who apparently heads a fair bit of the tree trimming, said he would be happy to schedule a walking tour with anyone who is interested to walk around Thomasville or on specific areas where trees have been intensely trimmed, and to have a discussion. So that's available. If anyone is interested to want to walk and talk with the man in charge, I can help set that up, or you can reach out to him directly. I'm happy to be a point person to do that. So you can.
I would like to participate, and I'd like you to be the point person.
Okay, Sarah, is that you?
Yes.
Okay, Dana, can you make a note of that for me? Is anyone else interested to have a walk and talk tour with this city who's doing the tree trimming?
It's my neighborhood has a lot of trees that are mutilated too. So
I'm interested.
Okay, Dana, we have Martha Williams also. Okay, well, that's enough. I'm interested also. If anyone else is, email, okay? Because the more we're working together and the more we're learning together and the more we're hearing multiple voices, the better.
Yeah, I'm interested too, just not during this major heat wave.
Okay, we have
Yeah.
Judy Langston also.
Can I just say?
I'll do it during the heat wave.
Let me hold for a minute. I saw Kara's hand and then I heard a voice. Kara.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, I love all these individual trees, but I'm really most interested in areas that can support wildlife. So, swaths of trees, sections. I really think it's important to try to change whatever laws are allowing people to clear cut. I'm not sure how that works into the ordinance. The other thing, I don't want to be like negative, but I do feel like sometimes a lot of these rules apply to the little guy, and the big developers get all kinds of, exceptions. And so I don't know. I just think that that's not my area of expertise, but I really am thinking that we need to have swaths of land on these lots to be able to make some type of wildlife, area sections so they could continue to live there.
Agreed. And I think that speaks to Jeff's vision and what he's moving forward on. And something that I'm not clear about, I wonder what other people think. Do we want to think about additional, or are there community members who want to think about additional ways to collaboratively buy and figure out protective structures? Or are they interested to see if they can fund and just add money into what Jeff is doing?
That wasn't actually it. It was not buying property, but changing the rules about what the developers are allowed to do on the properties.
That's very clear.
Yeah.
Thank you for the clarification.
There seemed to be, and I don't know, maybe Wendy can answer this, but from my perspective and all these environmental things, I've seen several issues. First is just an ordinance for the tree. I don't know if that, preserving a certain part of the parcel would be under the ordinance, or if that is part of updates to our land development code. And I can see a lot of updates that we do need to that, to do with preserving wetlands and buffers and preserving a certain portion of the land, as natural habitat. So this is a very complicated issue, and it's, as I think Tabitha said, she suggested 2 ordinances. We may have multiple ballot initiatives that we need to get going, and we have a year. We have to have 10,000 signatures in. I think it's about 10, 11, 12,000, something like that, to get it onto the ballot. And I think, like Tabitha said, all the city commission has to do is vote to put it on. So we need 3 people, or we continue to do it ourselves without them. And, I've heard a lot of our politicians say they love trees, and in private meetings behind the scenes tell me that. And I don't see the proof of that in the policy. So it's unfortunate that we have to do it ourselves, but here we are.
So we're going to be wrapping up in about 10 minutes. I think I felt Jeff wanting to say something. So I'll, I've got a little radar here. But in addition to that, does anyone have percolating in their mind? Dana, do you have something percolating in your mind about either pulling together a group or coming to the Environmental Justice Committee or shouting out here, what is an additional actionable thing that could make developers have greater, stricter guidelines about what they can do on their trees? This would take some learning. This would take some phone calls. But Tallahassee is not that big a city. These are actual people here. These are individuals. We are not facing a really vague, amorphous enemy from space. These are real people and a small number of people that are making a lot of very substantial laws and decisions. So if we get a little group of people together that want to read up on it or talk to people that know about it, there could be a plan. So does anybody have more of an idea about what could be a next step about the issue about when people buy land to develop, they're just cutting down too many trees? Because we all feel that that sucks. What do we do?
This is Mark. Sorry, my video's messed up, but I would be interested in providing just some background. I guess I've worked, I work now at the Extension Office. I've worked for the County Growth Management. I've worked for County Public Works. And I'd be glad to kind of either ask the folks that still work in those offices to come talk about what are the actual regulations in the Land Development Code. And if they're not willing to, I'd be glad to just kind of walk through it with you and say, hey, here's what they're supposed to follow. And here's their actual plans. I mean, all their plans are public record. You can see where they set aside conservation lands. They're not perfect, but I'd be glad to just provide that education.
Mark, thank you so much. My mind is dinging Wendy, Kara, and Dana, who might be specifically interested to engage with you on that. I'm not trying to lead here. I'm trying to listen for where's the community interest and help make the connections happen. Wendy, Kara, Dana, does that speak to you to get together with Mark and learn more about how does this stuff work?
I'll be happy to talk with Mark. Hi, Mark. The one thing I did want to say is that there's a study underway right now, and I think some of you may know about it since you've been following what Mindy is doing, where a consultant was hired by the city to do a review of past development approvals to ascertain what they could learn about trying to fix the tree ordinance, so the tree protection ordinance. Some of us might not feel that that was actually necessary, but that's the process they've gone through. And according to Mindy, that should be released probably within the next couple of months. And so I think one of the actions involved in what Mark is looking at might involve, trying to get a hold of that information and incorporating that into what we're looking at in terms of what's on the books right now.
Yeah, I think it'd be great to talk to Mindy Mormon. She's the county forester, county urban forester, something like that. And the thing is some of these folks, I was a little hesitant to come here because it's hosted by the Democratic Party. We're all government employees. We need to be nonpartisan, but I can provide education if the people that are there and currently working in those positions, they might be a little hesitant to come talk to the group, but I'd be happy to kind of translate, I guess, what the existing plan, the regulations are, so that you all understand what it's out there now, because there's comments that are not quite correct, but I understand the what you're seeing doesn't seem to look like much conservation.
Mark, thank you so much, and I appreciate your willingness to come and show up here. People can take these discussions and these lines of inquiry anywhere they want to go. They do not need to stay grounded in the Democratic Party at all. This was a platform to support community. That's why we're here. We are here to engage in our values, what we care about. And these are values articulated by our Democratic Party, but they're not exclusive to the Democratic Party at all. Far from it. So in our wrapping up, I would love to see how can we concretize this relationship with Carrie, Kara, Wendy, Mark, Martha, who want to move this conversation forward, and it does not need to go through this platform.
I have Martha, Wendy, Kara, and Dana. Was that it?
I voiced Dana. I did not hear her pipe
Oh.
up. So I don't know. I know her heart is big time wanting to work forward on land, but it depends on what is her moment.
Well, I think all I need is Wendy's contact, and I'll just email you guys and see what we can do. I can get a hold of Martha and Kara.
Okay. Okay, that is fantastic. So we're coming to close.
Mark, I have my contact info in the chat, or if not, I'll get it to you through.
Okay.
So, okay.
Could I say one more thing real quick, Claudia? Do you mind?
Yes, and then I want to jump back to Jeff, who had something in his mind.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
No.
Not too bad.
Okay. Well, one thing that did occur to me is that, and Darwin pointed this out, the city commission voted 4-0 with Scott Maddox out of Chambers a few years ago to investigate the idea of adopting a tree board like Atlanta does. So they voted for it. And one way I see this working is that we get all these people to help new faces to start to put pressure on our city commissioners to do what they said that they're going to do. So that's, this is a vote that they've already done. They've already approved it, and it should have come back sometime in the last 3 years. So it's time to continue to push that forward.
Thank you, Max. Okay, Jeff, I'm calling on you. I feel like you had something a little while back.
Oh, just a couple of things, and it's relevant to the initial post of the Facebook post, and that is that, and also to what Mark said, which is it's really important that we are accurate. And I want to say that when I posted that, I was on Facebook, I was seeing the damage that was being done on Thomasville Road, and it was a part of Thomasville Road near Benton, and then extrapolating that they're going to be doing that to the whole rest of the road. And of course, it doesn't look like they've actually done that much damage to the rest of the road up to Market Square. So if I had to do it over again, I would be much more accurate about what I was saying. And then people were commenting saying this devastation is occurring here, here, and here. And some people were accurate, and some people were referring to things that had happened like 10 years ago. So I do think, and myself included, it was my bad, that we have to be accurate and in what we're doing. And so I think Mark can be very valuable in making sure that we're accurate in what we're talking about. I would also say that I planted a holly tree with the Plant a Tree program, and with the new regulations, next time they'll probably have to cut it down because of the power line. So the city put in a tree that they're now going to cut down, which I find ridiculous. And then I just simply want to say, with regard to developers, really the only thing that's going to stop them beyond city and county commission votes is tracking the money, exposing the money, investigative reporting, those kinds of things, because that's why they're getting away with it, because they're special interests that have money. And then finally, the biodiversity here is really important. I hope nobody takes it for granted. It is special. It's so important to hold on to that and realize that that is something that we can't let slip away, along with all the other things we're talking about.
Jeff, thank you. I will share that my last communication with Jeff today, he sent me a picture of a little firefly, very, very rare, that really speaks to the sort of stunning and mind-boggling diversity that we have. And that little firefly, which is so rare, was not like way, way out in the Apalachicola forest. It was like in town. So our efforts to protect land in town is worth a lot. And thanks to Shelby again, we want to protect land in town, and we want to do it in a way that is mindful and interactive with the people that are living in and amongst and with those lands. That, by the way, includes people that are homeless. Many, many homeless people live in these sections of forest, and we can all have ideas and judgments about how they should or should not be there. But the fact is that these wild spaces provide shelter for all kinds of animals, including us. So I appreciate everybody coming here tonight to put their hearts and minds together to think about how we can move forward. Has anybody who has not spoken want to say something?
Yeah, I've raised my hand. I don't know if you saw it or not.
I'm
you
sorry.
hear me? Yeah, okay. I mean, this is a Democratic Party meeting. Another Democrat, the Tallahassee Democrat. I mean, I've long said this goes so much deeper than we get into in these issues. But yesterday and today, I'm guessing some of the people read in the commentary part. Yesterday, granting rights to water and nature could greatly hurt, or that's today. In response to yesterday, let me go back to yesterday. Protect our natural resources, amending Florida's Constitution. And then in response to that today, granting rights to water and nature could greatly hurt Floridians. I'd recommend people to read both of these and think about them. Not surprisingly, the second one is from the Center for Human Exceptionalism, kind of like the Heritage Foundation, but these people think they know how to think. So read this stuff and think about it from both directions so you can know how to say it to the people who need to hear it. That's it. I'll shut up.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Stephen. Awesome. Other final words? Okay. We have a few action plans here. Alex, you're lit up like a firefly. Do you want to say something?
I was just going to say it's a little outside of the scope of our conversation, but if people want to stay on after this, I can give an update on Northwest Park.
Thank you. Alex is talking about an area many people know that he's just turning me onto a park that's apparently really threatened with development. He has some beautiful photos of wildlife. Kara, it reminded me of what you saw. Kara, you told me about how you saw wildlife fleeing from the land when they were cutting forest. And my heart visualized that. And then Alex sent me some pictures of bears and foxes and creatures in this forest. And man, I would love to contribute to protect that forest and land, as well as to contribute small parcels in Tallahassee. Both of those are really important to me and really to all of us. So what have we got? What do we have that we didn't have when we came into this meeting? One, we've heard that Jeff is actually moving forward and his idea has legs of a land fund. It sounds like that is happening, and I'm going to guess he's going to keep us updated on that. Shelby Green may help him with some mapping. Max and whoever else knows about trees is going to offer some input and consult. And wow, this will be amazing and powerful if there is a land fund that we can contribute to help protect forest. We've got that. We have Wendy doing some research into some stuff that is very helpful. We've got Mark offering to talk to people offline, and we've got a group together to learn more so we can be more accurate. I want to offer the idea that accuracy is really, really important. And a lot of progressives get hung up on accuracy and it stymies them from moving forward. When we look at the Republicans, they're not the kings of accuracy, but they're getting a lot of shit done. So yes, accuracy is important, but passion and clarity of mission is also really important, and not to get hamstrung too much on accuracy, because we look at the success of the Republicans and the developers and what they're telling and what they're doing, and they're getting a lot done. So yes, strive for accuracy, but don't worry about being off the mark sometimes, as long as you're moving forward on the vision. Okay. Any other final comments? I'm going to offer a little closure. Over the next week, we are going to tabulate the comments in the chat and email we've got. We're going to put that together in a shareable document, and we're going to send that out to everyone who gave us their email. So you will have this richness of ideas with you, and you will have a way to reach a lot of the people that were on this call tonight. So we want to keep moving forward, and tomorrow's a new day with all of its busyness and all of its tasks. But some ideas were started and named and moved forward tonight, so we want to keep up. We will send you out more information too. We may group up again in 3 weeks out through this platform if there's enough interest, or people can move forward in their own ways. As a Democratic Party, we're not trying to own this discussion. We're trying to support the residents of Leon County to move forward on values they have. So I'm going to take a breath. We're moving into closing here because why are we here? Trees. So let's think about the trees for a moment. You can close your eyes if you want. I'm going to. So think about the deep roots of the trees and the branches that reach up to the sky and the branches that reach out. Think about swaths of forest, maybe big forest or maybe small. And remember that the trees who have their branches intermingled are usually the strongest. So find in yourself the power of that tree with its deep roots and trunk and branches. There may be wind and rain and drought, but some things endure. So I invite the power of these trees and this land that we love to keep us strong and ultimately optimistic. Thank you all for joining tonight, and we'll be in touch.
Thanks everyone. And I am going to stick around for a minute to see the pictures of the park if Alex wants to show some.
Cool. Yeah. Am I able to do screen share?
Yep, Alex, let's just pause a moment just so we have clarity on the ending of our DEC hosted
Right.
sharing.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks, guys, everyone. This is great. Very good. Let's keep moving forward. Good night.
Good night, Judy. Thank you so much.
I agree. Appreciate it.
And I'm ending recording.